time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornblum, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day. So join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
We fought today. I'm proud of my guys. I'm not happy we lost to Clemson. I'm not happy that we didn't shoot free throws. It is what it is. But we're a better team today than we were 10 days ago.
To respond in that way after a nice win at Florida and a fairly short turnaround for our guys to be ready to compete at the high level we did. And I thought our execution got better the longer the game went offensively.
I love it. You can put me on record with that. I've been a long-time advocate for an early signing period in football for years. In fact, I presented it at the head coaches meeting at the coaches convention 3 or 4 years ago. Now, I just wish it was earlier. I wish we did it August 1.
13 are mid-year enrollees, and I can't say enough about that from a standpoint of obviously extremely intelligent, obviously guys that we think can play and help us, so they're talented. But then you throw on top of that, from a standpoint of priorities in life, discipline, there's no way I could have graduated mid-year.
Wow. What a day it has been going back to last night, 24-hour period between last night and now. Here on Sports Talk, welcome in National Signing Day in December. It just doesn't feel right, but it's here, and it's probably not going to go away because I think as time progresses, the players are going to find that, yes, I want to get this over with as early as possible. And you heard Dabo Swinney. I think Will Muschamp also likes the early signing period. Is the one who's been most outspoken, I think, among the big-time coaches saying it's a bad idea. But seems like the players who have signed and now have recruiting off their back will like it, and the coaches know what they've got now moving forward, and whatever is left behind available in their classes, they can concentrate on filling those holes in February. But it's been a crazy day in terms of the recruiting world. We're going to hit on that. Of course, we're going to hit on the USC-Clemson basketball game from last night. But let me tell you, if you're just tuning in, you've been at work, you haven't had a chance to follow it closely, good day for both USC and Clemson. More hits than misses. Both teams signed all of their previously committed players that were going to be signed early. South Carolina still has 4 players committed who did not sign early, but that was expected. They did end up signing Jonathan Gibson, defensive back from Houston, Georgia, who had not planned on signing early until Will Muschamp probably made a phone call or two, and his head coach sat him down and said, hey, you better take advantage of this while it's there. So they got that done. USC also picked up Javon Gwynn, the offensive lineman from Charlotte, who was torn between USC and NC State. That's how they finished their day. It wasn't a perfect day. Oh, they also added Rosando Lewis, the big linebacker out of Florida, getting him flipped over from Florida State. They did miss on Jarrett Jackson, who stuck with his commitment to Louisville. Clemson, Jackson Carman, the big offensive lineman from Ohio, signed with the Tigers over Ohio State and Southern Cal. That was big for them early. They followed that with Lynn J. Dixon, the running back out of Georgia, who picked Clemson over Oklahoma State. And then finally, late this afternoon, K.J. Henry of Clemens, North Carolina, signed with Clemson to cap off the Tigers' 15 signees today. They did miss on Cade Mays, who signed with Georgia, and Jamari Sawyer, who signed with Georgia. So that is the overview of the newsy part of the day. Again, all the guys who had previously committed to Clemson signed, and all the ones who had committed to South Carolina, minus Marlon Character, Ronnie Jameson, Bryce Thompson, and Lamarius Benson, who all said they weren't signing early. The other guys all signed.
It really is interesting how this period came to pass. It almost seemed like a chess game, I would say, from guys who were thinking, oh, maybe I'll sign early, maybe I won't sign early. But to the point that we've been making over the past couple of weeks, and I hate to bring up the thing that you wrote about Stephen Gilmore, is that you have to take advantage of that spot when it's offered to you, because it might not always be there. And this is going to become, I believe, the new normal for guys who know they have an offer, know they want to go someplace. This is when they're going to sign, not in February.
And I think one of the people who need the people that need to be asked about this early signing period, the parents, because it's a Christmas present to them that they don't have to pay tuition for their kids to go to college. And what better Christmas present than, look, son, sign on the dotted line now before we put up the Christmas tree. We're not putting it up until you get it. For Clemson, more star power on their defensive front. They have to keep that flowing as we suspect some guys may turn pro early. For South Carolina, building the depth that they need, especially in the secondary and in the offensive line, and getting more athletic on the offensive line, I think will be key for South Carolina.
Well, they've done that. I think both coaches are truly satisfied with what they've done so far. Both know, though, there's still more work to be done. There's still the February signing period. Who knows? There's 2 more days left in this signing period. There could be a surprise or two waiting out there for either side. I don't expect anything right now because everybody who was supposed to sign early, that they expected to sign early on both sides, did just that. Israel Mugwamu, who had talked about Friday, he actually is going to have his formal announcement on Friday, but he signed today and sent in his papers. So 20 in for USC, and 13 of those will be enrolling early, and 15 in for Clemson. And the Tigers have 7 of those enrolling early.
One thing that could be interesting to follow with this whole thing as we go in the years to come is whether or not in between signing periods you can be let out of that letter of intent before February, especially in case of a coaching change. That was something Dabo Swinney talked about as well. And also when you think about the way these things will play out with guys who are declaring early for the NFL draft. Taylor Hearn, by the way, for Clemson, said he's going to leave early and forego his final year of eligibility. Still waiting to hear on some of the defensive guys and also offensive lineman Mitch Hyatt as well as that. So from that perspective, there'll be plenty of those types of pickups that both teams can possibly make in the late signing period as it sits now.
Now, as far as the teams go, you were up at Clemson today with the basketball game last night, and I was at USC this afternoon. Caleb Chalmers, who signed with Clemson originally, got in some trouble, left there, went to junior college, signed with USC. He's transferring out, according to Muschamp. Most of the injured guys, with the exception of Deebo Samuel, the guys who are hurt early in the season and missed time, are healthy, practicing, and looking forward to having the bulk of those guys. We're talking like Casey Crosby, Rico Dowdle, Sherrod Green. He mentioned those guys. They'll all be ready to go for the bowl game. He feels like the bowl practices have gone well so far. They're doing the bulk of the heavy lifting here, putting in their game plan and getting all that done before they go down to Tampa. And no new injuries to speak of. As far as the offensive coordinator is concerned, we'll not hire one until after the bowl game in January. Brian McClendon is the only member of the staff under consideration. Bobby Bentley is coaching the quarterbacks. He's not being considered for the OC job. Only McClendon is. And he said he'll hire his 10th coach on January 9th. So obviously, I guess he must have an idea who that's going to be.
And he said somebody possibly looking in special teams in that regard. But I just want to say that when you think about the Bobby Bentley connection, while he is a quarterback guru and while he has all of this offensive masterpiece and mastermind, even what Muschamp said, he's the most qualified guy on our staff to be an offensive coordinator. But he basically said it without saying it. You don't want to put that guy in the position where he has to basically bench his son.
I said last night.
Well, why do you have to be so negative? Maybe he won't have to bench his son. Maybe his son's going to be a Heisman Trophy candidate next year.
I'm looking at you. No, I'm staring at you right now.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a negative.
I could stare a knife through your eye right
positive.
now.
And he said they separate. The thing is, you separate the family from the field.
Do you?
What happens with family is family, and what happens on the field is field.
I think it
you ever coach your kids?
No, but I tell you what, he's coached 4 of them. Haven't he coached 4 of his kids?
All
so you look at it. As I said last night, I think Muschamp wants this to work because both of these guys are 2 of his best recruiters. And Muschamp, before he got off the plane in Columbia for his initial press conference, said, I'm the recruiting coordinator. And the recruiting coordinator does not want to shake the apple cart as far as 2 of his 2 best recruiters are.
Okay, we'll hit a break. We got a lot coming your way. Football, basketball, recruiting. We're on it here on Sports Talk.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
All right, we're back with you. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. It is signing day edition 1 for 2017. I guess in February, it'll be signing day 2018. Little bit weird having all this recruiting activity on December 20th, but that is the way things are now for college football, at least for the foreseeable future, maybe permanently. We shall see. But the guys who were signing certainly were excited about it and must feel like it's the right thing to do. It does throw a little extra pressure on some guys because as what happened with Jonathan Gibson today with South Carolina. He had said he wasn't going to sign early. He wanted to take some more visits and sign in February, but he was still firmly committed. But South Carolina was interested, and Muschamp was interested in getting all the guys signed who could be signed, who were solid academically, and who he could count on moving forward with no question. And he was one of those. And when he kind of dilly-dallied, they probably put the screws to him and said, hey, look, we can't guarantee your spot will be here if you don't sign with us today. That's the additional pressure now that a player faces. Do I really want to sign early? Do I want to wait? If I don't sign early, will that school wait on me? Will they still have my spot? Very few players are of that magnitude where they will wait on you now. It's like you better grab it while it's there. Otherwise, we'll move on and you'll have to move on. And we could both be losers, but that'll be the case. So a little bit extra pressure put on the players there from that standpoint. Still, the coaches have to kind of double up as well. There's more pressure on them. They're dealing with bowl practices. They're also dealing with recruiting. Muschamp said for the first time in his coaching career, he took a phone. He took his cell phone with him on the practice field so he could make calls or receive calls because he was right in the midst of recruiting while practicing. All that being said, the class is in for now. 20 signed by Muschamp. We met with him just a little while ago to get his overview on the class.
As far as our signing class is concerned, to carry on Joyner is the lone quarterback that we signed from Fort Dorchester High School, played for Coach LaPrade over there. 40-3 as a starting quarterback, and the word that comes to mind is intangibles that really jump out at you. And a charismatic young man. He positively affects everybody around him. When I first got the job at South Carolina, his football team within the next week was playing a state championship as a 15-year-old sophomore for Fort Dorchester and won a state championship here at our stadium, his stadium now as well. And we're excited to carry on being a part of our program. But guys, again, 40-3 says enough to me as far as what he's accomplished. He also is a mid-year enrollee. Of the signing class we had, 13 will be mid-year enrollees, which is the largest number by far that I've ever been around, and I'll address that as we continue to move forward. Deshaun Fenwick from Braden Rivers, a 6-foot, 220-pound back. Extremely talented, big back, tough, hard-nosed runner, has really good hands out of the backfield, a really good blocker, extremely bright. But this is a big explosive back that we're excited about. Bobby Bentley did a fantastic job in the recruiting process with Deshaun, and we're really excited about him. Again, another mid-year enrollee that'll be on campus here. Josh Vann from Tucker High School. Brian Lamar's the head coach over there, one of the best programs in the state of Georgia. We signed Aaron Sterling last year from Tucker, and most any young man I've signed from that school knows about work and effort and toughness and the things that we value here in our program. But he had a wow factor at camp. He's a very smooth receiver. He's got great hands. He's got great ball skills down the field, but a guy that we're extremely excited about. Deborah and Stacy, his parents, are great people, and really excited about Josh. They played in the state championship against Valdosta last year, and they lost, and then they got beat in the semifinals this past year to Coffee. But a great program. He understands about winning. He understands about work ethic, and that's two really important things. Javon Gwynn from Harding High School up in Charlotte played for Sam Griner. They just won the state championship, first time since 1951. It's an amazing run there that they had there at Harding this year. I think they ended up being 14-1. But you're talking about an explosive athlete. He's a 300-plus power cleaner, 400-plus bencher, and a 500-plus squatter. So this guy's an explosive athlete, could play on the defensive side of the ball, we feel, but he will start as an interior offensive lineman for us. We're excited about Javon. Rosendo Lewis from Deerfield Beach was a guy that we identified early in the process. Coach Glenn, his coach down there, is a guy that T-Rob and I have known for a long time. But early on, we had identified this as being a guy that we wanted to have on our football team. He committed to another school, and this crazy coaching carousel takes place, and he's looking for a home. And we were able to continue to recruit him. He can play all four linebacker spots. He can play Sam, Mike, Will, or Buck. He's got pass rush ability, but he's a guy that's got a tremendous upside. He is a head butter. And I went and watched him play, getting ready for the state playoffs there last year in December down at Deerfield. I left the practice field, looked at T-Rob, and I said, he's one of us. So we've been recruiting since then. We're very fortunate today that he's a Gamecock.
All right, that's Muschamp talking about some of the players in the class of 20 that he signed today. Again, very, very pleased. As he said at the beginning, he believes they got better today, which is what you want to do with a recruiting class. And I'm sure Dabo Swinney felt the same way about his guys.
He was coming from getting the announcement from Jackson Carman of Ohio, who you mentioned previously, picked Clemson over Ohio State. Couldn't initially talk about Carman at the beginning of his press conference because the facts didn't come in. But once the facts came in,
Jackson Carman, Action Jackson, let's go. Press conference, take two. Oh, man. Well, I mean, he's sometimes you sign guys that have everything in the box. Y'all have heard me say many times, and you just kind of got to put it all together. And you got a lot of those guys that come through here, whether it be a Vic Beasley, kind of takes a little while to develop him into a special guy. And then sometimes you got guys you just they're just got everything that you could possibly look for, and that'd be a Sammy Watkins, a Deshaun Watson, those type of guys. They just show up and you go, wow. Dexter Lawrence and Christian Wilkins, and that's kind of what he is. I mean, the guy's 350 and can move. There's probably none of y'all here that can outrun him. Be willing to lay money on that. I mean, he can absolutely fly. For a 350-pound man, very physical, and just number one player in Ohio. I think that's number one player in Ohio, number one player in Florida, number one player in South Carolina, number one player in Georgia. Just a huge pickup for us.
Coach, you have so much competition at quarterback. What does it say about where the program is, the job Coach Streeter has done, and the special place that Clemson is that you're able to sign a quarterback like Trevor Lawrence?
I think that just speaks to certainly Streeter and the type of coach he is, how he articulates things in the recruiting process, that you have the quality of young men that we have in that room that want to come here and compete, and they want to play in our offense and what we do. And I think that's this is the number one player in the country, and we got good players here. So they all understand competition, and like I said, Trevor committed last December, and has been one of the most low maintenance recruits I've ever been around. I mean, just, hey, I'm coming. Okay, all right, that's it. I mean, it's just nothing to it. He's known what he wants to do, and he's excited about having an opportunity to come in here and compete. That's what I mean. My job is to go recruit the best players that I can recruit for Clemson University. And then when they get here, challenge them, grow them, mature them, develop them, and to be in the best version of themselves. And competition is going to bring out the best in everyone. And at the end of the day, somebody's going to win a job. You're going to have starters, you're going to have backups, and that's life. That's the way it is. So we have a process in place. You go through it and let chips fall where they may.
Watching the Facebook Live feed of the Clemson announcements, the little celebration they have in the football building, watching that this morning, and Dabo's talking to the crowd a little bit after 10 o'clock. Don Munson is moderating, and Dabo gets a phone call. And he tells everybody, "Whoop, I got to take this phone call. Hold on." And then Don Munson comes back on the screen and goes, "Yeah, I think he's getting a phone call from a pretty important recruit that could fill a big need here at Clemson." And I'm just wondering, was all that coordinated, to be done for the greatest effect on the Clemson fans? Like, here's Dabo. He's taking this big call now. He'll be back in a second. He came back up on stage, and he was all smiles from ear to ear. And not too long after that, Carman announced he's going to be a Clemson Tiger. We'll be right back. And we're back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network from downtown Columbia and all across the state. Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, the professor, Tom Hayes, celebrating with all of you signing day 2017 for the 2018 class. Last night we had J.C. Horn on with us, who did ink today with South Carolina. We wanted to talk to a Tiger signee tonight, and we welcome into the program from Seneca, someone who should have a fantastic career with the Tigers, Braden Galloway, tight end, who inked his letter of intent with Clemson today. Braden, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
We're great. Thank you for joining us tonight. Congratulations. Tell us about the day. What's it like to wake up and sign the next 3 or 4 years of your life away in a good way?
It was very exciting. I mean, I was looking forward to it last night, and even this past week, really ever since I committed, it was very exciting. Got to wake up early to sign, and then I got to watch Coach Swinney's press conference. I think it was on Facebook Live from like 8 to 10. So I got to watch a lot of coaches talk about all the recruits for the 2018 class, and then I got to watch my name get put on the board. So seeing that stuff's exciting.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what were you when you saw your name come up on the board, and I guess when you saw which coach was it that brought your name down the hill? Was it Coach Pierman?
Oh, yes, sir. It was Coach Pierman.
Yeah, so what were you thinking? You see that going on. You hear him talking about you. What are you thinking?
It's exciting, especially since and it's almost surreal just because I played last year my junior season, and I only got to play 2 games of my senior season because of my foot injury. But it's exciting. I can't wait to be there.
What was the ultimate deciding factor for you in picking Clemson?
Really just the family atmosphere and the coaches. I mean, I was new to the whole recruiting process. I had some small schools recruiting me in basketball, but nothing like NC State or Clemson like they are in football. So I was new to it, and at first I didn't want to make any quick decisions or anything. But I came up. I visited Clemson since it was only like 10 minutes away. I came up like 3 times that week after they offered me, and after that, it was just a no-brainer for me. Just because the loving atmosphere they have, just the fans and all the coaches. The coaches are so real when they recruit, and that was the deciding factor.
While you were rehabbing, did you look at the Clemson games and sort of mentally plug yourself into the tight end position as you were looking at the formations and saying, I can do that, I can do that, yeah, I can work on that? Were you doing those sort of things during the season?
Oh yes, most definitely. I was definitely looking at their offensive formations, seeing how they use the tight end, and I feel like I can be used in a lot of different ways in different offenses. So I feel like it's a good fit for me. But yes, I was most definitely watching the game differently than I had been maybe last year or year before that, whenever I wasn't even playing football.
Now, so being right up there in Seneca and 8 miles from Clemson, you know the history well. You know the tight end position there well. Do you see yourself as a Jordan Leggett type of tight end at Clemson, or more like a Dwayne Allen, or even going back to the days of like a Benny Cunningham, if you recall him or know anything about him?
I really don't like I feel like I'm my own version of myself, but I feel like I have more similarities to Jordan, just because we were both basketball guys, and then we both came in almost around the same way. I think Coach Swinney said I was a little bit bigger than he was when he first got to Clemson. But I feel like he's what most people compare me to.
Mm-hmm.
There've been a lot of guys who have made that basketball tight end transition. You think about Leggett, you think about Tony Gonzalez in the NFL. What was the hardest part transitioning full time to football?
It wasn't really hard because I knew that's where my future was. I knew that after NC State had offered me, it was still like up in the air whether or not I wanted to play basketball, because every kid still has those basketball dreams, and they always want to play basketball in college and make it to the NBA. But I just had to sit down with my parents and really be realistic about everything. And that even though I've been playing basketball for the last 15, 14 years, and hadn't been playing football, I just had to make that. I had to make that choice. But it was obviously hard, coming from a family where everybody played basketball. So, I mean, but it was hard, but I feel like that was the best decision for me.
Talking with Braden Gallo, who signed with Clemson. So, I mean, I know what they tell you. Work hard, do everything. You know, you'll get a chance to play right away if you're good enough, if you can beat out the competition. But realistically, how do you view the tight end position ahead of you, and whether or not, you know, even with hard work and all this sort of stuff, do you foresee playing in 2018, or do you think a redshirt year would be good for you?
Well, just the fact that I even get to enroll early and be a part of the team is a blessing. So I mean, I think it really just depends on how quickly I learn the playbook and the formation and things like that, and obviously how much weight I gain. Because right now I'm sitting at like 223, like 222 around there. So I obviously have a good 20-25 more pounds to put on. And the main thing will be just how my body reacts to the nutrition and the weightlifting and the workouts and all of that. But I feel like if I do that and I learn, and I don't think I'll have a problem learning the playbook and getting the formations down and everything, but I feel like I'll have a chance to play.
What benefits do you see that basketball has done for you? We see more wide receivers who are bigger and tight ends who play basketball that use that box out technique and rebounding to get open, and especially in the corners of the end zone to score touchdowns.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I feel like you said, boxing out. That's one technique that basketball has that I've used from basketball that I've carried on to the football field. I also think just ball skills in general. Because in high school I was like the biggest person on the team, so I played in the post a lot, so that obviously helped out with like rebounding and things like that, like jumping up to getting jump balls and things like that. So I feel like that can carry on to the field. And then in summer ball, I played like the 2 and the 3, so I had the ball in my hands a lot more, dribbling the ball a lot more. So just ball skills in general, just having the ball in my hands, being able to locate where passes would be thrown, and being up and get stuff in the defenses. I feel like all that I've used that in basketball, and I feel like that can transfer to the football field.
Lastly, Braden, what about the recruiting pitch did you like the most from Clemson's perspective? And also, when did you know that you wanted to be a Clemson Tiger?
Well, like I said earlier, like throughout the whole process, they were real with me. They weren't like giving me empty promises or anything like that. So I knew what I was going to get myself into. I knew that going in there, I'm going to have to work. Like, well, that's at every college. And but like I said, it's just how the coaches, they're so easy to talk to. It's not like they make it seem like they're just some regular old guy just talking to you. Whenever they'll be your coach for the next 45 years, and they don't make it that huge deal. They make it just seem like they're a normal human being. And I forgot what the second part to your question. What was it?
Oh, just when did you know?
Well, growing up in South Carolina, I liked Florida State growing up, but when Clemson and Carolina played, I would want Clemson to win. But I knew that if I ever decided to play football, obviously Clemson would be one of the schools I got to play at. So when they offered me, automatically they were at the top of my list. I didn't know necessarily when I was going to make that decision, because at first, like I said, I wanted to have a slow recruiting process and just weigh my options and do all that. But it was like a couple of days after they offered me, because it took me a while for it to be realistic that they had offered me, just because I hadn't been playing football for so long. But I would say, like, because I think they offered me on a Wednesday, I committed at the spring game that Saturday, so it didn't take long for me to know.
Hey, what do you think of the class you're coming in with?
Oh, we're so deep. It's gonna be very scary. We have so many guys, so many athletic guys, so many versatile guys that can do so many things, and it's gonna be very scary.
Well, we congratulate you, and stay healthy. Have a good rest of your basketball season. And no, you're not playing basketball. That's right. You're enrolling early. Yeah. Enjoy getting back into school in January and working out with the team. And we'll be following your career with a lot of interest. And thanks for joining us tonight.
Oh, yes, sir. No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy holidays. Braden Galloway from Seneca with us here on Sports Talk.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
And we're back, Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. Thanks to Braden Galloway for being with us tonight from Seneca. He is a very good talker, and he'll be the subject, I'm sure, of a lot of interviews over the years at Clemson because he handles himself very well.
That Jordan Leggett type body, that was a comparison Dabo Swinney made in his press conference today. It was very, very evident how impressed they were with him and his work ethic.
All right. The state's finest Christmas trees, they are still on sale, but time is running short. They're on sale throughout the state at your local South Carolina Department of Agriculture Farmers Market. Celebrate the holidays, make your home beautiful, and support our farmers today. Trees are available until Christmas Eve, so you still have a little bit more time to do that. Today, of course, was Christmas for all of us who follow the recruiting world to some degree. I hate the fact we got to do it again in February. Yes, February, we'll sit right there at 7 o'clock in the morning waiting for those LOIs to roll in, checking up on the ones who are holding off and trying to find out what's going to happen.
Won't be as big as this one, though.
Well, I mean, this big in terms of what? I mean, they had over, I heard on ESPN during their coverage, like 1,100 and some odd players at that time nationally had signed, but another 1,100 and some odd had not.
Right.
So there's still a bunch, I guess. But we'll have to wait and see what happens by Friday because this runs through Friday. But I imagine there'll be a pretty good number still out there waiting to sign in February.
There's not much more that Clemson or Carolina can sign.
Well, when you think about it,
the numbers.
But you got to consider there will be some deletions from the programs. There'll be some deletions from the program, and both still have some players on their boards that they want. For example, South Carolina, they'll make room for Rick Sandage.
Right.
They'll make room for
Dorian Gerald,
Dylan Wanham, maybe Dorian Gerald, Channing Tindall if he decided he wanted to go to South Carolina. Clemson, Leon O'Neal. For sure, I think they'd make room for him. Matthew Hill, if he wanted to come their way. Brendan Radley Hiles. I don't think any of these guys signed today. So, and there'll be others that will crop up. So let's get to the bowl side of things for the two teams because they continue their practice and getting ready for their games.
It's interesting. I thought that Alabama conquered a real psychological hurdle last year with Alabama winning over them. Dabo Swinney said, "You're not off."
I think the one thing that last year did, just where we were in our journey after 8 years, was just kind of validation. Because our guys truly believed and they thought they were good enough. I think they know they are. And they don't need to win the game to know that they are. They know that they're good enough. They could lose the game. It's not going to change anything the way anybody thinks around here. I think we're playing Alabama. I mean, I know they're the 4 seed, and this is supposed to be the easy draw, right? But we're playing Alabama. And when you play Alabama, there's a good chance you get beat. That's life. But if you get beat, you get beat. You had a great year. You move on to the next year. You start over, and, man, let's go do it again. It was a blast. It was so much fun. But, man, we're going to do everything we can to win these 4 quarters so that we have a chance to go play another one and have one more pregame meal, one more little week together. But we'll see what happens. But I just nothing is going to change, how our guys think. When come February, we're going right back to work. And March 1, we're going to be in spring ball. And this summer, we're going to be grinding. And next year, we're opening up with Furman, I think. And then we're going to Texas A&M, and I can't wait. So, I mean, just got a bunch of guys, new guys coming in here. I'm excited about that. There's so much to look forward to. So I don't really need any of that. I think we're way past all of that. I mean, we won 61 games in 5 years. I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody. I think that we've proven at Clemson that there's nothing that we can't do.
All right, Dabo Swinney from his presser earlier today up at Clemson. Now, back in Columbia, Will Muschamp, after talking about his recruiting class, turned his attention to the task at hand for his team. They've been going through their bowl practices, getting ready for Michigan, which he knows is a most formidable opponent.
We started really Friday, and we've had 4 training camp-like practices with our football team, really working on fundamentals and techniques and working on South Carolina. And that's what we've been really honed in on and what we're trying to do. Today was our first day, even though it's Wednesday, it was a Tuesday for Michigan. Tomorrow will be a Thursday, but it'll be a Wednesday. And then Friday will be a Friday, but it's going to be a Thursday practice for us as far as our game preparation. We want to have the whole game plan in on Michigan before we take the break. And then we'll meet down at the bowl site on the 26th, have a walkthrough, do a little conditioning, and then have a pretty much of an extra day, but a game week like preparation. Michigan's got a good football team. I got great respect for this program. They're very impressive on both lines of scrimmage, especially in their front 7 defensively. Rashawn Gary, Maurice Hurst, Devin Bush is a guy we recruited. They're very active in the front 7. Don Brown, their defensive coordinator, does a fantastic job. But they're a physical football team. They're going to line up in 2-back and multiple big people sets and try and run the ball downhill and play actions off of that. And they've got really good skilled people outside. So we have our work cut out for us, but they're an impressive football team. As far as our roster is concerned, academically, we're in great shape. As I stated earlier, Caleb Chalmers will transfer. He came to me and wanted more playing time, and I certainly wish him well. Jamias Williams had surgery, and he is out for the game. He'll meet us down at the bowl site. Right now, everybody else, I think, should be up for the game. I will be able to update you more when we get to Tampa, but Casey Crosby's practicing, Rico's practicing, AJ, Anton Wilder, all of those guys are practicing, and all of them should be available for the game. But I'll update you more when we get to Tampa for sure.
Well, why the change in offensive coordinator, and what are you looking for from your offense here going forward specifically? Well, what did you want to change?
Well, I just think we need to be more productive at the end of the day, and that was kind of what I wanted to do. And but schematically, I like what we do. I like to play with a little quicker tempo at times, and we need to be more productive.
With the change, who will be coaching quarterbacks for the bowl?
Well, right now, Seth Strickland's coaching our tight ends. Pat Washington's working with our running backs. Bobby Bentley's working with our quarterbacks. Brian McClendon's working with receivers, and Wolf's working with the offensive line.
When did you come to the conclusion to make that change with Kurt Roper, and how did that conversation go?
Well, it was after the season was completed, and kind of evaluating, as I always do in all phases of our program, whether it's in recruiting and coaching and players or whatever it is. And then it was not a fun conversation. He's a guy that I've got a tremendous respect for. He's an outstanding football coach and an outstanding person.
The 10th assistant coach, do you know when you might make that hire?
January 9th.
What kind of role are you looking for in that job?
Well, again, obviously, I don't anticipate any other changes on our staff. But you got to be prepared for anything from that standpoint. But I need some more help with Coleman Hudson on special teams. The guy does a phenomenal job, and I want somebody to be able to help him. But it also needs to fit for us in the recruiting aspect as well. In our area of recruiting from North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida to continue to help there.
When a guy like Coach McClendon is going through what you kind of call a long interview, what are the sort of things you kind of look at, since it's obviously a pretty short amount of time that he's kind of in that spot?
Sure. Well, I think, organizing practice, organizing meetings, command with the team, command with the staff, and, obviously the preparation to the game and then the production of the game. I think it's all encompassing. And, to this point, he's doing an outstanding job.
Okay, Will Muschamp talking about preparation for Michigan. We'll have more from the coaches tomorrow, and USC will actually have media opportunity with some of their players tomorrow. We'll have that covered for you. And, of course, Sports Talk will be on the scene in both New Orleans and Tampa, probably without question, no doubt about it. Only Sports Talk show in the state covering both. Some cover one, some cover the other.
Well, I'll be there with both.
We cover both. That's what we do here on Sports Talk. Been doing it for 34 years, not stopping now. So we're looking forward to that starting on December 26th.
How did I make you laugh? Why did I make you laugh?
Just that face. And don't forget, no show on Christmas. We are off on Christmas.
You need some sleep, bro.
I could use some. So could you. We'll be back.
No, I'm fine.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Okay, we're back. A very busy edition of Sports Talk on this Wednesday night, National Signing Day for football. But last night, the big basketball game up at Little John Coliseum turned out not to be much of a contest at all, as Clemson handled South Carolina with, well, relative ease as the game moved on. The Gamecocks never led. It was tied, I think, once. Tigers took the lead. They never gave it back. Last night we had Aaron Lucas. Well, I guess it was Monday night we had Aaron on with us to preview. So on the back end, we've got the other side of Give and Go. We've got Jordan Roper with us, correct? Yeah. Jordan.
What's up?
It is Jordan Roper, former Tiger, with us to talk about. You predicted it. Thought your guys were going to take care of business last night, and they certainly did that.
Yeah, they did. That's that positive momentum I was talking about. You know, they're just carrying it forward, and Marquise Reed, he's playing with confidence and shooting the ball really well.
What impressed you the most about the overall team performance?
Overall, I mean, just how they closed the game out. I mean, a lot of times during my career and playing for Coach Brownell, there were games where we'd be ahead and we didn't finish the game the way that we were supposed to, and that just shows the maturity of some of those guys being on some of the teams that I was on. They came together. They look like they enjoy playing together. And, they're having fun. They're playing with passion. So it's very exciting to watch.
What was the most glaring thing to you, Jordan, about the defensive effort from Clemson? I know that Brad Brownell said to me after the game that they did not play zone, but it did look like they were doing some different things on the back end away from the basketball to kind of confuse South Carolina inside.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I guess the focal point had to be Chris Silva. I mean, he's an unbelievable, post player for South Carolina. But, I mean, I just think on-ball defense was the biggest thing, having high hands and taking away sight of passers and making it tough for the South Carolina guards to get into the flow of the offense.
This is a veteran team, Jordan. And when you look at it, Clemson seems to be hitting shots because guys know where their comfortable are and they know where they can find their guys. Do you see that correlation that they're getting the ball where they want it, when they want it?
Yeah, I definitely see that. I mean, Marquise Reed, I mean, he's just a shot maker. He takes and makes tough shots. And, Sheldon Mitchell, he's also a guy that can get to the basket and make tough shots. And Dante Grantham, Gabe Dover, they're playing in, like you're saying, they're in their spots. They're making and taking their shots. And, it's helping the offense flow more naturally than guys just, taking wild shots or bad shots that are out of their character and out of their game.
Did you see the kind of defense last night? They held South Carolina to 35% shooting. You see the kind of defense last night that Brownell likes to stress. It kind of got away from him some last year. Are you seeing more of that type of defense now from this group?
Yeah, I mean, last night I definitely saw that. I mean, you're seeing a team that's buying into Coach Brownell's game plan and philosophy. And like I said, they enjoy playing with each other, and they're playing with passion. That's what's most important in college basketball. I mean, the talent difference isn't that much between teams at the major Division I level, but the guys that show up ready to play and want to play, that's what's going to separate them. And last night, that's what you saw.
You knew the front court would be a little bit more neutralized. You mentioned the strength of Silva, not just offensively but defensively. But how do you think both Elijah Thomas and Dante Grantham affected the game while they did not necessarily put it up in the box score either with rebounds or points?
Yeah, I mean, just their leadership, their experience. I mean, Dante Grantham, you have a senior player who started I think he started every game except for one in his whole career. And, Elijah Thomas, who has, he's got experience from last year, and he's a very talented player. I mean, they affected the game in many ways outside of the scorebox, like you said, but I think the main thing was their leadership and being in a situation just like that one last night.
When you look at home versus road games in the ACC going forward, Jordan, it seems your offense aggressiveness is really cranked up when you're playing in your jock man-to-man defense, especially at home. You may want to just take the brakes off when you play zone on the road. Do you see Coach Bradell making a combination of defenses, home and road, depending on the atmosphere that you're playing in?
I'm not sure it depends on the atmosphere, but more so just on the personnel that they're playing against. Coach Bradell and his staff do an unbelievable job scouting and preparing the team for, the players on the other team, their strengths, their weaknesses, and then coming up with a game plan on, how to disrupt their offensive flow and disrupt what they do offensively. I'm not sure that's a home or away thing. Your question?
Were you up there last night?
I was.
Yeah. You said you were going up. Did you get a chance to go in the locker room afterwards and mingle with the coaching staff and the players? And if you did, kind of tell us what their feeling is like now, being off to this 10-1 start.
They're excited. They just want to keep that positive momentum rolling forward. I talked to Coach Brownell after the game, and he's very excited. But they all spoke about the same thing: is just how close knit of the group they are, and how they're just trying to keep that positive momentum rolling forward.
A peep in on South Carolina, Jordan, just because I know that when we looked at this team coming into the season, you knew they probably would take some of their lumps early because of all the experience they lost. Frank Martin says he thinks his team got better over the course of that 10-day stretch. How much do you think that is true, and how much do you think that that's a man just kind of resigned to the fate that this might be a down year?
I definitely believe it's true. It's a Final Four head basketball coach saying that. I saw flashes of, the team that he said that they could be. Holden, he played very well, before he went down with the injury.
Correct.
That's a guy that can get to the basket at will. And then, you have a monster in Chris Silva down low. You just have to get some of the new guys acclimated and, really get a flow within the team. And like I'm saying with Clemson, build some positive momentum moving forward. You go through ups and downs throughout the season, but, you can get your group together collectively to move forward. Good things will happen.
Tough to win, though, when three of your starters combined to make one shot. Minaya didn't hit a shot. Booker didn't hit a shot from the floor. Gravitt hit one. Three of your five guys make one shot. That's not going to bode well for you.
No, it's not. But, there'll be days like that, and that's where, other guys have to step up and contribute. Or, you have to find a way to win. And that's a part about being a close-knit group. You can fight together. So
how do you think at 10-1, you got a game against La Friday afternoon? I think it's Lafayette, right?
Yes, yeah,
Lafayette. So, how do you think Brad rides this horse now with ACC play coming up? I think New Year's Eve they play NC State at home. How do you think he rides the guys here for the next week to get them ACC ready?
Moving forward, I don't think that necessarily practice or anything changes. But definitely when the ACC gets cranked up, guys need to be locked in, and practice will be a little bit more intense, more attention to detail. But I think like I said before, the guys are excited to be there and in this position, so I think they'll be ready.
You think this is has Clemson showed you enough now that you believe it's an NCAA tournament team?
I think that they're very solid basketball team. I think moving forward, if they can, minimize on their mistakes and just keep, staying true to their identity and not try to do too much or not, underperform, I think that they are an NCAA team. Moving forward, if you win 9 games in the ACC, you got 20 wins.
Yeah.
So I think moving forward, I think that is the NCAA team.
Yeah. Hey, Jordan, thank you, man. We really appreciate it. Have a great holiday, and we'll catch you on the other side.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and Merry Christmas to you guys.
Merry Christmas to you.
I will say this. Clemson's an NCAA tournament caliber team. Whether they can make the NCAA tournament will determine about whether or not they can get the schedule to break for them correctly and maybe steal a couple of games that going into the season you didn't think that they'd be able to win.
When you're in the ACC, and even if you're 2 under 500, you're going to have an RPI floating in the 30s to 40s.
Right.
And I think this team, with the way they're playing right now, that we've seen Clemson teams really hit a wall in the ACC. I don't think this team will because of the experience they have, especially at the guard position. And I think they can make the NCAA tournament.
Their first 5 games in the ACC, they play NC State twice in the first 5 games.
2
NC
wins.
State is struggling. Yeah. Go up to Boston College. I think that's winnable. Louisville at home.
Everybody tough. They get it home.
Yeah, but chance to get off to a good start. Be right back.
Everybody they
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Okay, you just heard from Jordan Roper talking about last night's game up at Clemson, 64-48. The Tigers beat the Gamecocks 2 years in a row. Clemson has defeated South Carolina. Clemson 10-1. The Gamecocks fall to 8-3. Will was up there to watch it, take it all in, and Listen to the coaches afterwards.
Brad Brownell's team won its 6th in a row, 10th overall on the season. Brad Brownell thinks that this team, which has won 3 games now over Power 5 schools, hitting its stride as they conclude the non-conference portion of their season.
Really big win for our guys. I thought we really kind of a workman-like performance. I think you just play against South Carolina, it's going to be physical. They're going to get after you defensively, and I thought our guys matched that intensity level. I'm really proud of them to respond in that way after a nice win at Florida and a fairly short turnaround for our guys to be ready to compete at the high level that we did. And I thought our execution got better the longer the game went offensively. I think early we were a little hyped up and probably tried a couple things that maybe weren't as good. And then the longer the game went, I think we settled in as coaches and players and played extremely well. And obviously I thought our ability to make it hard for them to score and not giving up a bunch of putbacks was a big key in the game.
Brad, not an easy test for Elijah with those big twos. Pretty
really pleased. I think, that's where he's made some great strides is he's not allowing, nights when it's hard to get the ball to him and not scoring as many points. He's not letting that bother him at all. He's just playing. He's playing with better technique. So he's not fouling as much. His attention to detail, every day in practice, the extra film he's watching. I thought he paid special attention in the last 2 days of practice, walkthroughs and meetings to really have great technique because we knew that Silva gets everybody in foul trouble that he plays. And so we talked, for 2 days about guarding without fouling. And I thought he did a great job of that. And obviously he had 5 blocks. He's done a good job rebounding defensively. So he's made great strides. The last 2 games, he's played very well defensively.
Coach, South Carolina only got 3 assists in the game. Is that the best defensive effort you've seen from your guys this season?
What were you doing defensively? Are we mixing and matching stuff between zone and man?
No, we didn't play any zone tonight. We played all man-to-man, 40 minutes. We practiced some zone in case we might use it, but we just guarded them. Guys, I think, buckled their chin strap on. I thought we were prepared with the plan of how to guard some things. We made a couple of adjustments because they were getting in the paint on us a little bit, but I think we made those adjustments, and guys really did a great job of at halftime adjusting to 1 or 2 things that helped us kind of keep them at bay. And then just like anything, when a team they had a couple shots they could have easily made and they didn't make them. And when you get in a game like this and you don't make a shot for a long time, it's not easy to make one. And, I think that really worked in our favor. And again, I think offensively we just got more relaxed and comfortable playing against their pressure defense.
Again, 25 points from Marquise Reed. He was the ACC Player of the Week for his efforts against Florida and certainly carried that effort into the South Carolina contest. South Carolina, by contrast, not a good shooting night, 35% from the field, just 2 of 16 from 3. They didn't make their first 3 until about the halfway mark of the second half, and their second 3 came in a non-competitive portion of the contest. And despite all those negatives, I expected fiery Frank Martin last night, but he was actually rather pleased.
We're a better basketball team than we were 10 days ago. We played a pretty good first half. Second half, made some bad mistakes offensively, which gave them breakaways and that kind of got the game to that 9-10 point mark. And then we couldn't make a shot, couldn't score in the second half. We had some shots. You got to make them. They made theirs. We didn't make ours. And some of our guys are going to learn what it's like to go on the road and not shoot any free throws in the second half. It's part of life. Can't make excuses. You got to go play.
Questions for Frank?
Frank, do you know update on Corey?
Game just ended, man. It's just hamstring. I got no idea.
Coach, obviously Clemson lost their own boxing game. How would you compare this year's Clemson squad to what you saw last year?
They're all seniors. The first 6 guys are all seniors. Every single one of them's a senior in college, and they don't make mistakes. They play well. They're good defensively, and when you play in a game and you're throwing the ball into Chris Silva and they commit a total of 17 fouls the whole game, they're real good defensively. And, I know the team foul says 9. They committed 7 because they committed 2 at the end of the first half. They were just kind of kill the clock kind of fouls. So in reality, they committed a total of 7 fouls. They're good. They're good. And when you play a team that don't foul and all you do is throw it in the post, then you got to make your threes. And we didn't make our threes.
Coach, what were the issues on offense?
The ball didn't go in the basket. I mean, we don't shoot free throws and you don't make threes. How are you going to win? I mean, I got no problem. The only thing that we did bad offensively today is we had some turnovers that were steals for them. Like we have 14 or 15 turnovers, 9 were steals. If you give them steals, they got 4 guards on the court at all times. They're coming downhill at you and they all shoot, pass, dribble. They're impossible to stop in the open court. And we fought today. I'm proud of my guys. I'm not happy we lost to Clemson. I'm not happy that we didn't shoot free throws. It is what it is. But we're a better team today than we were 10 days ago. That's all I want. That's all. With so many new guys, that's all I'm focused in on right now is continue to get better. Because at the end of the day, our goal, our mission is to be standing tall at the end of SEC play.
What was something you did today that you wouldn't be able to do 10 days ago? You said you made that kind of.
We guarded them. We guarded them. I mean, they scored probably 6-7 points on hand check fouls. Well, we can never get to the line on a hand check foul because they never fouled. So it's hard to, so take away. They averaged 79 points a game. They scored 64 today. We guarded. I thought defensively we fought them. I got no complaints with the fighting our guys. And if you take away the steals that they were just converting, if you give them steals, just put points in the basket against them. Just they shouldn't even have to run. They should just stop the game, give it back to you, and just put points in the basket because they're that good in the open.
That is head coach Frank Martin from the South Carolina Gamecocks. And I made that comment to Jordan, and I don't know how you feel, Corn, but I hate to use the word resigned to the fate, but I think Frank Martin just kind of knows what his team is right now, when not only is it a work in progress, but while he can like the upside, the present is not where you'd want it to be.
I see some similarities with South Carolina now to what Brownell went through at Clemson when he took several transfers, especially guys coming from other programs, grad transfers. They've got a little bit of that still at Clemson, and it seems to be meshing now. But these guys have been in the program, like Marquise Reed has been in the program now 3 years.
Right.
Shelton Mitchell's been in the program, I think, 3 years. So starting to catch on with them. Now, South Carolina has got a lot of pieces that are new, and I don't see where it's come together yet. And I still go back to what we've said here repeatedly, and that is, and it was pretty obvious last night, they don't have good point guard play or good guard play in particular, but they miss that guy on the point who can run their offense and who can, when necessary, get into the lane, either make a shot or distribute it, and they just aren't getting that right now.
And there's a guy they had would hold it.
Yeah.
I keep telling you that the guy spent too much time in the weight room, and that's why the hamstring. When you tighten those things, that's what happens. I think I see from a coach's standpoint what he's talking about. South Carolina had no problems hitting the floor, diving for loose balls, and we saw guys engaged, looking at each other. Do you want it here? Do you need to move there? We saw some leadership being taking place on that sideline. But as he said, the ball must go in the basket.
I was wondering if that comment about them not fouling was a subtle shot at the refs, but in my mind, I think the game was called very evenly and very fairly.
Hard to make it through a game with only 9 fouls being called on you. The way Brad Brownell likes to play defense.
I just didn't notice. I mean, they were aggressive, but again, it was like they were aggressive about fouling. It was an anomaly.
Yeah. Okay, we'll be right back. I want to remind you the state's finest Christmas trees are still on sale throughout the states at your local South Carolina Department of Agriculture farmers markets. Celebrate the holidays, make your home beautiful, and support our farmers today until Christmas Eve. Give you a little more Sweeney and Muschamp coming up here in just a moment. You know, the only reason I do this is because I know people like to look at him. And so on signing day, I will allow myself to take a gander at the rankings of the teams. So I'm in the process of pulling up the Rivals ranking for today after today's activity, just to see where everybody's falling. So Georgia is number 1.
Seems to be a consensus amongst everybody.
Ohio State is 2. Penn State is 3. Texas is 4. Miami 5. Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Alabama, Auburn, and Clemson, the top 10. South Carolina would be 15 by Rivals. So it's not bad for either one of them. I mean, for all the hand-wringing about Clemson recruiting from the Gamecock side from a fan standpoint, you know, they see what Clemson gets. They get the 5-star here, the 5-star there. Now, keep in mind South Carolina signed more players, and that adds to their point total here the way Rivals does it. But still, if you're South Carolina, you're pulling in what is considered by Rivals a number 15 class, Clemson pulling in a number 10 class. That's pretty close. Not a heck of a lot of difference there from the ranking standpoint.
We got a question on the Twitter from Britton at SportsTalkSC. He asks, who is the biggest recruit that both Clemson and Carolina signed today and why? I would say Clemson, without question. I would say the biggest.
You mean everybody or who committed today? You mean
of those who signed today? It's the way he says it's signed today. I think if you're going to go by the way that he probably means that question, I would say the biggest get that they could get was KJ Henry, because you needed to replenish what you might lose on that defensive line. You could say Trevor Lawrence is the biggest signee they had today because he could be their future quarterback, but you've known about Trevor Lawrence, as Dabo said, since last December. So I'd say KJ Henry probably is the biggest.
I mean,
although
Jackson Carman is also big.
I think they're more set at offensive line than they are with defensive line.
Well, it all depends on how many people leave.
I think that
from this defensive line after this year.
I mean, I think Dexter Lawrence.
You could see an exit. You know, you could see Wilkins leave, and then you could see Bryant leave. You could see Farrell leave.
I think
you could see Lawrence leave after next year.
I think Wilkins is Lawrence is the lone man standing out of this year.
Yeah.
You have to.
No, we'll see. I mean, oftentimes we've looked at Clemson and thought guys were leaving, and they ended up staying.
Right.
And for whatever reason, and so we'll see what happens. You know, South Carolina, I think getting both Lewis and Gwynn, big for them today. A couple of guys they really wanted, and they finished strongly by getting those guys, and getting Gibson to go ahead and sign and firm him up was big as well. So they didn't have – the good thing is neither side had major disappointment. How does Clemson feel about not getting Mays? Well, they got Jackson Carman. Is that a wash? Is one better than the other? Who knows? I mean, it's probably a wash there. Could they have gotten both of them? Would they have taken both of them? Possibly. I don't know. In South Carolina, they wanted Jarrett Jackson. He ended up sticking with Louisville, and they need help. They need pass rushers. They thought he was a guy that they could use as a pass rusher. They didn't get him, but the flip of that is they got a linebacker who was committed to Florida State who's a good-looking player.
Depending on how these guys do at linebacker who are redshirted this year, Lewis brings a guy in that they need. Here's a guy who's versatile. He looks like he can really be stout in the middle of the field and also play a pass rushing role. But I agree with you also. It's almost a tie with Gwynn, because I think South Carolina has to develop depth at the offensive line. If there's any weakness to that offense, everybody talks about execution. Well, give the quarterback some more time. And now they've got some athletic guys who you hope they can build depth with and be there for the long haul when they get to the fourth quarter.
I think you're all wrong. You're all wrong. It's the secondary guys, J.C. Horn, Israel Mukuamu, Jonathan Gibson. They need to be basically locked down on the back end, because that front seven is good enough to be able to carry them. And if they were just a little bit stronger in some places on that back end, maybe you win a couple more of these football games that were maybe borderline.
I happen to believe good pass coverage starts with a good pass rush. In today's football, with the rules the way they are, you can't touch a guy. It's hard to stay on a receiver as good as these receivers are, as well versed as they are in the passing game. And if you allow the quarterback more than like 2.5 seconds back there, today's quarterbacks, they'll pick you apart. So I really think you got to be good on the back end, but I think you've got to be outstanding on the front end to put pressure on the quarterback so that he can't stand back there and pick you apart.
But I'm confident in what they have in their front seven. I like their front seven.
I still don't see enough of a pass rush. From South Carolina, we're talking.
Yeah.
I don't see enough of a pass rush yet. I mean, Wanham came on this year and was much improved, but who else had a big year in sacks for them? Where else do they get a lot of pressure? Occasionally from Dante Sawyer, and occasionally from another defensive end here or there. They don't blitz a whole lot to where they're getting a lot of linebackers involved in sacks.
But we saw some flashes from Johnson and Sterling late. That's where your development, the development has to come in. But as an old cigarette commercial used to say, it's what's up front that counts.
That cigarette commercial?
Yes.
Yeah. You got a little more Dabo?
I do. Dabo, a big champion of the early signing period. We were talking about movement to that earlier. He talked about that, basically lead off his press conference.
I don't understand that. It's not any different than it's ever been. There's no difference. We've always been recruiting and bowl games and all that stuff. Nothing has changed. The only thing that's changed is there's a date in December that guys can sign a piece of paper. There's nothing changed. I mean, we're on the road recruiting. If this signing date wasn't here today, guess what? Nothing would have changed in my life the last 3 weeks. Nothing. I'd have still been on the road. I'd have still been doing home visits. I would have been at schools. Would have been bowl prepping. Would have been bowl practicing. Nothing would have changed. The only thing that's different is all these guys that have been committed to us and guys that wanted to make a decision now had the opportunity to do that. So it's 100% to the benefit of the player, in my opinion, because they don't have to sign. Nobody don't have to sign. They can wait. Lots of guys out there not signing today. But for the guys who've been a part of your class that want to go ahead and have that opportunity to be done with it, it's great. But nothing changed for me. Zero. Because even if there wasn't a signing day, you're still on the phone recruiting. You're still texting. You're still, like I said, in schools every day, in homes every night. There's still a dead period, just like we just got into Sunday. So we're in a dead period now. There's nothing different than what it's been in the past. And, you know, we're the only sport that doesn't have 2 signing periods. We're the only sport. Which, again, that never made any sense to me. Because what has happened, the reason I'd like to see it move up to August, because then we'd cut, I think, personally, instead of speeding up the process like we have now, it would slow it down.
As Dabo Swinney from earlier today talking about the early signing period. I don't know how you feel, Corn. I like it. I like it. And what? I like it.
Dabo wants.
I know you don't like it. You're a traditionalist. You want
No.
things
I mean, okay, you know what? I like it. Let's just have one.
Well, that's the other part of it.
I'm not crazy about looking ahead 6 weeks from now and doing this again. Maybe we'll just get to where we do one.
Well, the reason why they don't have a second one is because of the fact that there is so much turnover that happens after the bowl season's over.
Well, there's turnover that happens traditionally after National Signing Day in February. A lot of coaches have made their move after getting those guys signed up. We may have the same thing this year. And the players who sign with position coaches expecting them to be there when they get there might be disappointed.
Well, everybody's got 2 signing periods. Football was the only sport that didn't have 2 signing periods before this year. So that's why they have it.
Well,
to allow for attrition. Now, if you're going to have a second one, I don't agree with having it in February. I feel like you have it after spring practice for like the late bloomers.
You mean, well, but then you got to think about academics. You got to think about getting guys into school. That late might be a little bit tough. That's got to come into play too, I think. We'll hear from Muschamp some more in a moment.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
All right, let's bring you a little bit more of Will Muschamp from his press conference today. He's talked about his signing class, which he likes. He talked some about his team and practice and getting ready for Michigan. And he talked about his offensive coordinator situation. What about Jake and Bobby Bentley, the quarterback and the quarterback's coach now? Bobby Bentley is coaching the quarterbacks here during bowl preparation. Perhaps that'll be something he will continue to do. And, of course, Jake Bentley, the starting quarterback, coming off his second season, first season full-time as a starter, season and a half as a starter. And Muschamp was asked to discuss Jake Bentley, how he's progressing and how that will work with his dad coaching him.
Well, again, I think that Jake has done a phenomenal job as a high school senior, playing last year and then going into his second season and playing very productive football for us. And I got all the confidence in the world, and he has all the confidence of his teammates in the job that he's done. And certainly there'd be some balls he'd like to have back. He'll be the first one to tell you that because of his competitive edge and the way he is. Bobby's the most qualified guy on our staff right now to coach quarterbacks and has done a pretty good job. He won 9 state championships coaching his sons multiple times. So I think he's more than qualified for the job to do a good job. And we understand the relationship, and it's different when you're on the field. It's the coach-player relationship when we're on the field, and we understand that.
A couple of things. Zach Bailey at one point was talking about looking at the NFL. Has he given you an indication for sure of his plans for next year?
Right now, I totally expect him back. Mm-hmm.
And when do you want to make an OC hire?
It'll be after the bowl game.
Shortly after the bowl game? Is there any deadline once you get past the bowl game in terms of urgency? And the 10th assistant coach, do you know when you might make that hire?
January 9th.
You expect to add that person then? You expect to be ready to go there? What kind of position are you looking for? What kind of role are you looking for in that job?
Well, again, obviously, I don't anticipate any other changes on our staff. But, you got to be prepared for anything from that standpoint. But I need some more help with Coleman Hutzer on special teams. The guy does a phenomenal job, and I want somebody to be able to help him. But it also needs to fit for us in the recruiting aspect as well, in our area of recruiting from North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida to continue to help there.
Have you decided for sure that you're going outside for an OC hire? And if not, how many guys on your staff would you consider?
Brian McClendon.
Okay. So is this kind of an audition for him, would you say, or?
It's a long job interview.
Michigan obviously has a great defense. Do you get involved with Coach McClendon more than you did previously with Kurt Roper, just because, this is his first time, coordinating an offense and calling a game?
No, I mean, I just normally put the tape on more than likely with our opponents in the conference, because I've been in this league for a long time. And whether I've worked with a coach or not, sometimes I can give some insight to how they think and what they may do. There's no guarantees on anything. And obviously, breaking tendencies is a huge part of what good coordinators do. So, but I don't know Coach Brown as well. I know that he does a phenomenal job with exotic pressures and different things that looks that he gives you, and the odd fronts and even fronts. And I've watched a lot of their tape and realized they're pretty good. So, but Brian and our offensive staff, they'll do a good job putting a great plan. I've been very pleased with how we've practiced and how our preparation has gone to this point. Extremely pleased.
Could you do me a favor when you go up to Carolina tomorrow?
I do you no favors.
You backhand the guy who asked Will Muschamp, had the audacity to ask Will Muschamp, do you expect the offense to look any different with Brian McClendon as the offensive coordinator? What?
That was me that asked that question.
It was not you. It was a kid. It was a kid who asked that question.
Me and my kid voice. ESPN's rankings has South Carolina at 18 and Clemson at 5. So they have a much bigger differential between the two. They have Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, and Penn State number 1 through 4.
I think 247 had Ohio State 1, Georgia 2, and Clemson 7, and South Carolina something like 17.
Now, the other news that come out of USC today, right. 2 assistant coaches, this is from the NCAA, leveraged relationships with high school coaches to create a built-in recruiting advantage. This is according to a Committee on Infractions panel report. Case was resolved through the summary disposition process, and the school was allowed to punish itself, do the investigation, turn in the information. The violations stem from the coaches' 2 separate visits to the high schools to observe a workout during an evaluation period. And what they did was they had a coach or strength coach handpick 4 prospects to perform drills exclusively for this assistant coach to watch. And then a week later, strength coach pulled 3 of the same 4 aside to perform drills exclusively for the other assistant coach. So this is impermissible by the NCAA. So they had to stop recruiting any of those prospects. That was self-imposed. They reduced fall evaluation days by 4. That was self-imposed. No engagement in off-campus recruiting activities at that school until
next year,
August 31st. That was self-imposed. And suspension of each involved assistant coach from off-campus recruiting activities for how many days?
The entire fall.
No, how many days?
42 days.
Damn.
You act like I don't read any of the same garbage that you read on the show. I
Well-
read everything.
Well, is the fall only 42 days?
The fall evaluation period.
Oh.
The fall 2017 evaluation period.
I was just checking.
I was reading this while I was waiting for Dabo Sweeney to give his 45-minute missive.
So
Then you remembered all that.
So you
I
want
did.
to surmise?
This guy's a
So do you want to?
he's a savant.
Do you want to extrapolate?
He's a savant. I think we have a savant in our midst.
Do you want to extrapolate from?
Trying to say that my
I
talent's
can't remember to
wasted.
turn on my tape recorder.
either that or he doesn't have a life. If you want to extrapolate from that, can we decipher who maybe some of those players were that they had to stop recruiting?
Well, it's at one particular
interested enough
school.
to
It's
look
at
it
one
up.
particular school. So you would think it would have to be a pretty big school, and I would guess to say it would probably be in the state of South Carolina.
Citadel announced the signing of 2 players early: linebacker Kyler Estes from Tallahassee and running back Nakim Nyoku from Hampton, Georgia. Wofford, see if they signed anybody locally. Yes, Wofford signed from TL Hanna offensive lineman Quayshawn Greenlee. They signed 6 guys today, mostly linemen. Coastal Carolina announced the signing of 16 players today, and none are from the state of South Carolina that I see here at a quick glance. See if they sign any quarterbacks. One quarterback, Fred Payton from Sewanee, Georgia. And another quarterback, 2 quarterbacks, Bryce Carpenter from Sarasota, Florida. We mentioned this last night. Okay. No need to mention that again. So what else you got? I don't know about you. I've run out of steam.
You've run out
I
of steam.
am done. Stick a
find
fork in me and just turn me over, pat me on my head, and send me home.
Now,
I was going to say nursing home. No,
My understanding now,
Yes.
when you see guys,
Yes,
when
for
you
sure.
see like Gwynn and Gibson, who I think both said they would wait. Maybe you do get one signing date, and everybody says, "Oh," and maybe February just naturally gravitates into where we are now.
I think February is going to turn into that period of time where guys who either aren't sure or are, quote, late bloomers, that's when they find out.
Or
when they
Gilmore,
got-
who got lost in the shuffle,
Also.
may have a second
Well,
chance.
And let me talk about quickly USC numbers here because they announced 20 signees today.
Hmm.
But remember, now one of those
Tyson
is
Williams.
Tyreek Johnson.
Mhm.
Aha. See, I got you.
Wow.
One of those is Tyreek Johnson, Mr.
Gray shirt.
Know-It-All.
Gray shirt.
Yeah, he was a
Yeah, gray shirt.
gray shirt. Now, Tyshawn Williams, I'll get through this.
Or Tyson.
Tyson and Tyshawn, the 2 of them who make one, supposedly counts on this class too. So that would be 21. My point is it would leave them with 4 spots
And they've got 4 commits.
when they continue. And they have 4 commits. Exactly right. And so if they take anybody else moving forward, that means somebody of those other 4 they're not planning to bring in.
They got to go.
You can do the math.
So, as do we.
That'll do it. Hope you enjoyed our coverage. We'll see you tomorrow.